British exceptionalism, the belief in the United Kingdom's unique status and destiny among nations, has been a defining feature of British identity for centuries. Rooted in the nation's imperial past, its historical achievements, and its perceived global influence, this sense of exceptionalism has profoundly shaped the country's self-image and its approach to international and domestic affairs. While British exceptionalism has historically fueled a sense of pride and purpose, in recent years it has increasingly been seen as a source of division, contributing to some of the most pressing challenges facing the UK today. And this video will explore the origins of British exceptionalism, its evolution over time, and how it has become a contributing factor to contemporary problems, particularly in the context of Brexit, the UK's global role, and internal divisions. The concept of British exceptionalism is deeply intertwined with the nation's history, as I said. The British Empire, which at its height was the largest empire in history, played a central role in shaping this belief. The empire's vast reach, spanning continents and influencing cultures, economies, and political systems around the world, fostered a sense of superiority and a belief in Britain's unique mission to civilize and lead the world. This imperial legacy was not merely about power and dominance, it was also about spreading British values, institutions, and culture. And the idea of the British as a civilizing force was a key element in the narrative of exceptionalism, reinforcing the belief that Britain had a unique role to play on the global stage. In addition to its imperial history, the Industrial Revolution further solidified the notion of British exceptionalism. As the birthplace of industrialization, Britain became the world's workshop, leading the way in technological innovation, economic growth, and global trade. The country's advancements in science, engineering, and manufacturing not only transformed its economy, but also had a profound impact on the rest of the world. And this period of unprecedented economic power and technological leadership reinforced the belief that Britain was inherently different from and superior to other nations. The idea of British exceptionalism was further entrenched by Britain's role in major global conflicts, particularly World War II. The narrative of Britain standing alone against the threat of Nazi Germany, especially after the fall of France, became a powerful symbol of British resilience, bravery, and moral superiority. This period of defiance and eventual victory against overwhelming odds contributed to the myth of Britain as a nation that could overcome any challenge through sheer determination and resolve. Throughout the 20th century, British exceptionalism was perpetuated through various channels, including education, media, and political discourse. The portrayal of Britain's imperial past, its industrial achievements, and its wartime heroics in textbooks, films, and public commemorations reinforced the belief in Britain's unique status. And this narrative became deeply embedded in the national consciousness, shaping the way Britons viewed their country and, of course, its role in the world. In the post-war era, British exceptionalism faced significant challenges as the world underwent profound changes. The dismantling of the British Empire, which began in the earnest after World War II, marked the end of Britain's imperial dominance. The independence of India in 1947, followed by the decolonialization of Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, significantly diminished Britain's global influence. The loss of the empire was a traumatic experience for many Britons, challenging the long-held belief in Britain's unique status and role in the world. Despite the decline of the empire, the narrative of British exceptionalism persisted, albeit in a modified form. Britain sought to redefine its global role through its participation in international organizations such as the United Nations, NATO, and the Commonwealth of Nations. The special relationship with the United States, particularly during the Cold War, was also seen as a continuation of Britain's unique status on the world stage. However, these efforts to maintain a sense of exceptionalism often masked the realities of Britain's diminished power and influence in the post-war world. The UK's relationship with Europe also became a focal point for debates about British exceptionalism. Britain's initial reluctance to join the European Economic Community in the 1950s and its subsequent entry in 1973 were both influenced by the belief that Britain was fundamentally different from and superior to its European neighbors. The idea that Britain was a global power with interests and responsibilities beyond Europe led to ambivalence about deeper European integration. This ambivalence did later become a key factor in the Brexit referendum of 2016. The 2016 Brexit referendum was arguably the most significant manifestation of British exceptionalism in recent history. The campaign to leave the European Union was driven by a belief that Britain could and should chart its own course free from the constraints of European integration. The rhetoric of the Leave campaign was infused with the language of exceptionalism, emphasizing the need to take back control of British laws, borders, and trade. The idea that Britain was being held back by the EU and that it could thrive independently resonated with a significant portion of the electorate, particularly those who felt that the UK's unique identity and sovereignty were under threat. The Leave campaign also tapped into a nostalgic vision of Britain's past, evoking memories of the empire and the nation's role in World War II. The slogan, "Make Britain Great Again," echoed the idea that Britain could regain its former glory by leaving the EU and reasserting its independence on the global stage. And this narrative of exceptionalism was particularly powerful among older voters and those in regions that had experienced economic decline and that felt disconnected from the benefits of globalization. However, the reality of Brexit has proven to be far more complex and challenging than many proponents of exceptionalism anticipated. The UK's departure from the EU has led to significant economic, political, and social challenges. Trade disruptions, particularly in industries that rely on frictionless trade with Europe, have posed serious problems for businesses. The loss of access to the EU single market and customs union has forced the UK to negotiate new trade deals, often from a position of relative weakness compared to larger economies like the EU and the United States of America. Politically, Brexit has also strained the UK's relationship with its closest neighbours and allies. The negotiations over the Northern Ireland Protocol, designed to prevent a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, have created tensions both within the UK and with the EU. The issue has also reignited debates about the future of Northern Ireland within the UK, with some fearing that Brexit could eventually lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom. Moreover, the Brexit process has exposed deep divisions within British society. The referendum revealed significant regional, generational, and socio-economic divides, with Scotland and Northern Ireland voting to remain in the EU, while England and Wales voted to leave. And these divisions have not only persisted, but have also deepened in the years since the referendum, leading to a polarized political landscape and ongoing debates about the country's future direction. In the aftermath of Brexit, the UK has faced the challenges of redefining its global role in a world that has changed dramatically since the days of the British Empire. The belief in British exceptionalism has often led to unrealistic expectations about the country's ability to exert influence on the global stage. While the UK remains a significant player in international affairs, no one doubts this, its relative power and influence have declined in comparison to emerging powers such as China and India, as well as established powers like the United States and the European Union. The UK's attempt to position itself as a global leader in areas such as trade, climate change, and security has been complicated by the realities of its diminished status. The so-called Global Britain strategy, which aims to enhance the UK's influence outside of Europe, has also faced significant challenges. The government's efforts to forge new trade relationships have often been hampered by the complexities of negotiating deals with larger economies, which can dictate terms that may not always align with British interests. And the UK's relationship with the United States, often touted as a cornerstone of its global strategy, has also faced difficulties. While the special relationship remains an important aspect of British foreign policy, the changing priorities of the United States, particularly under recent administrations, have led to questions about the extent to which the UK can rely on this partnership. The US's increasing focus on Asia and its pivot towards addressing the rise of China have sometimes left the UK in a secondary position, struggling to assert its relevance in a rapidly shifting global landscape. Moreover, the UK's departure from the EU has reduced its ability to influence European affairs, a region that remains crucial to its economic and security interests. The loss of its seat at the EU table has meant that the UK now has to work through diplomatic channels to influence European policy, often finding itself on the outside looking in. And this has been particularly evident in issues such as the regulation of financial services, data protection, and security cooperation, where the UK once played a leading role within the EU. British exceptionalism has also contributed to internal divisions within the United Kingdom, particularly in relation to Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. The Brexit vote highlighted significant regional disparities, with Scotland and Northern Ireland voting overwhelmingly to remain in the EU. And these results have fueled calls for Scottish independence and raised concerns about the future of the Union. In Scotland, the Scottish National Party, the SNP, has used the Brexit vote as a key argument for holding a second independence referendum. The SNP has argued that Scotland's future is best served by remaining in the EU and that independence is the only way to achieve this. The UK government's refusal to grant a second referendum has created tensions between Westminster and Holyrood, with the potential for a constitutional crisis if the Scottish government ever decides to pursue independence unilaterally. Northern Ireland has also been significantly affected by Brexit, particularly in relation to the Northern Ireland Protocol I mentioned earlier. The protocol, which effectively creates a customs border in the Irish Sea, has been deeply controversial, with unionist parties in Northern Ireland arguing that it undermines the region's status within the UK. The ongoing debates over the protocol have exacerbated existing tensions in Northern Ireland and raised concerns about the potential for renewed conflict. In Wales, while the independence movement is less prominent than in Scotland, there has been growing support for greater devolution and even independence, particularly among younger voters. The sense that Wales, like Scotland, is being dragged down a path it did not choose has fueled debates about the future of the Union and the extent to which each nation can pursue its own interest within the UK. Domestically, British exceptionalism has also shaped the UK's approach to issues such as immigration, social inequality, and public services. The belief that Britain can maintain its traditional identity and a way of life in an increasingly globalized world has fueled resistance to immigration and multiculturalism. This resistance has often manifested in polarized debates and social tensions, particularly in the wake of the Brexit vote, which was partly driven by concerns about immigration. The idea that Britain is inherently resilient and self-sufficient has also led to complacency in addressing domestic challenges. For example, the belief in British exceptionalism has sometimes been used to justify underinvestment in public services with the assumption that the UK can overcome challenges without the need for significant reform or external assistance. This has been evident in areas such as healthcare, education, and social welfare, where persistent underfunding and rising demand have led to growing pressures on public services. Social inequality has also been exacerbated by the exceptionalist mindset, which often overlooks the disparities within British societies. The belief that Britain as a whole is exceptional can mask the realities of economic and social inequality, particularly in regions that have been left behind by globalization and deindustrialization. The Brexit vote highlighted these disparities, with many of the areas that voted to leave the EU being those that have suffered the most from economic decline and lack of investment. British exceptionalism, while historically rooted in the country's imperial past and global influence, has become a double-edged sword in the modern era. While it continues to shape the UK's national identity and political discourse, it has also contributed to a range of contemporary problems, from Brexit-related challenges to internal divisions within the country. As the UK navigates its post-Brexit future, it may need to reassess its exceptionalist mindset, recognizing that cooperation and adaptation, rather than a rigid adherence to a perceived exceptionalism, may be necessary to address the complex challenges of the 21st century. In an increasingly interconnected world, the ability to work collaboratively with other nations and to embrace diversity and change may prove to be the true test of British resilience and ingenuity. The UK's future success will likely depend on its willingness to move beyond the myths of exceptionalism and to engage with the world as it is, rather than as it once was. By doing so, Britain can redefine its role in the global community and ensure that it remains a relevant and influential player on the world stage, not through exceptionalism, but through adaptability, innovation, and collaboration. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.